You ever love somebody so deep you start building dreams out of thin air? That was me with Calvin. My husband, my forever, my partner in everything, or so I thought. He looked me dead in the eye one night and said, "Baby, I'ma build you a house. A real one. The kind you deserve." And Lord, I believed him. I believed every damn word. Because when a man says he's building your dream, you don't think he's hammering lies into the walls. You start picking curtains and counting blessings. Not knowing you're furnishing your own heartbreak, he made it sound so beautiful. Said he wanted a porch big enough for Sunday mornings and a kitchen filled with laughter. I could already see it. White shutters, a swing where our grandbabies might sit one day. Every time he talked about it, his eyes lit up like he could already see our future standing there, waiting. I'd never seen him so sure of something, and that certainty. It wrapped around my heart like a promise I didn't know would break me later. We'd drive out to that empty lot every other evening, sit in the truck with sweet tea and dreams. I'd point where the garden should be, and he'd smile, sketching lines in the dirt with a stick. "Right there, baby," he'd say. "That's where the sunlight hits just right." Back then, I thought we were building something holy. Turns out we were just laying the foundation for my biggest lesson. Funny thing about trust, it don't crumble overnight. It starts with tiny cracks you can't see. A late-night text. A phone turned face down. A new password you didn't know he changed. I told myself, "Lydia, don't you start imagining things." But deep down, something already knew. And if I'd known what those blueprints really hid, I'd have never picked out the paint. Because the day I walked into his office with lunch in my hands, I found out that the house my husband promised me had another woman's name on it. I used to wake up every morning thinking about that house. It wasn't just bricks and wood to me. It was proof that after all those years of sacrifice, of working double shifts and praying through late nights, we'd finally made it. Calvin said it'd be our fresh start. And baby, I held on to those words like scripture. Every Saturday, we'd ride out to that patch of dirt that was slowly becoming our forever. He'd have blueprints rolled under his arm, sawdust clinging to his boots, and that confident grin that could melt all my doubts. "Come on, baby, tell me where you want the rose bushes." And I'd point, laughing, right by the porch so I can smell 'em every morning. It felt like we were building more than a house. We were building a promise. He'd hold me close, whisper, "This time next year, you gon' be drinking coffee on your own porch swing." And Lord, I believed him with every piece of my heart. But slowly, things started feeling different. He stopped answering my calls at work. Started staying out later than usual. Said he was on site, checking supplies, meeting with investors. And I tried to understand. He was a contractor after all. Busy man, always hustling. Still, something about the way he avoided eye contact when I asked simple questions, it made my stomach twist. One night, I caught him smiling at his phone. Not a text from a supplier, not the kind of grin a man gives about drywall or roof shingles. It was softer, warmer. The kind of smile I hadn't seen him give me in a long while. I asked him, "What's funny, Calvin?" He said, "Just a client. Nothing important." Then he flipped his phone face down. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the ceiling fan creaking slow. My heart whispered something I didn't want to hear. The next morning, when I stopped by his office with lunch, just to surprise him, his secretary looked nervous. "Oh, he's with a client," she said. I smiled polite, set the food down, and waited anyway. And that's when I saw it. A rolled-up set of blueprints sitting on his desk. My name wasn't on 'em, but another woman's was. Because the moment I unrolled those papers and saw Vanessa Reed stamped across my dream home, I realized my husband wasn't just building a house. He was building a lie. Remember standing there in that office, the smell of coffee and printer ink hanging thick in the air? My heart pounding like it was trying to warn me. I wasn't even snooping, not really. I just wanted to drop off his lunch like I'd done 100 times before. But when my eyes landed on that roll of papers, neat and clean, sitting right there on his desk with my favorite pen laying across it, I swear something deep in me whispered, "Girl, you need to look." And Lord knows, I wish I hadn't. I pulled those papers open real careful, the way you do when you know you're about to break your own heart. And there it was. My dream. Our dream. Every single detail I had chosen, the wraparound porch, the big kitchen windows, the garden layout. All of it was there. Except for one thing. At the top of the blueprint, written in bold, official letters, were the words, Project Serenity, for client, Vanessa Reed. I stared at that name for a long while, trying to make it make sense. Who was Vanessa Reed? Why was my dream house labeled for her? I checked the date, recent. The address, the same plot of land we'd picked together. My hand started shaking. My stomach turned cold. I could hear his voice echo in my mind. Baby, this house gon' be ours forever. Now I could see the truth. It was his forever, all right. Just not with me. I tried to steady myself before anyone walked in. Closed the papers, set 'em back just right, and grabbed my purse like nothing happened. But inside, something cracked wide open. On my way out, I passed his secretary again. She looked away, too fast. That's when I knew. This wasn't no misunderstanding. Folks around him knew something I didn't. When Calvin came home that night, he kissed my cheek like always, asking how my day was. And I smiled. Because right then, I made a decision. I wasn't gonna scream. I wasn't gonna cry, not yet. I was gonna find out who Vanessa Reed was, and why my husband was building her a dream that used to belong to me. Because the next time I asked Calvin about Vanessa, I wasn't looking for an answer. I was watching how good he could lie. That night, I sat across from Calvin at the dinner table, watching him chew like he ain't had a care in the world. He was talking about drywall and suppliers and something called Phase 2, and all I could hear was that woman's name echoing in my mind. Vanessa Reed. Vanessa Reed. I wanted to slam my fork down right then and ask him straight up, who she is, Calvin? But I didn't. I smiled. I nodded. Because sometimes silence cuts deeper than anger. Sometimes you gotta let a man show you who he is when he thinks you don't know a thing. So I played my part. Sweet, calm Lydia. I asked, Baby, how's the project coming along? He said, it's moving good. Gonna be beautiful when it's done. And Lord, I almost laughed. Because I already knew who it was gonna be beautiful for. He reached over, squeezed my hand, said, You trust me, right? And I looked him dead in the eye and said, Of course. But my heart whispered, Not anymore. That night after he fell asleep, I sat up in bed scrolling through his tablet, invoices, contracts, names. And there she was again, Vanessa Reed, listed as client representative, same address, same home, my home. Only now the words exclusive buyer sat right next to her name. Exclusive, like she owned something that used to belong to me. I shut the tablet quick, my hands trembling. I didn't want to see no more. Not yet. Next morning, I told myself I'd get proof. No yelling, no begging, I'm just truth. 'Cause I wasn't about to let my years of loyalty drown under his lies. I called my best friend, Tasha, the one person who'd never sugarcoat a thing. Told her everything I saw. She whistled low and said, Girl, men lie. Blueprints don't. Then she said, Let's go see this project of his for ourselves. I hesitated. But deep down, I already knew. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So the next day, we got in her car, drove down that long gravel road where the house sat, half-built and gleaming in the sun. And baby, what I saw when we pulled up, it took the breath right out of me. Because there standing on my porch was my husband, holding another woman's hand like she was the one he built it all for. Tasha drove slow down that gravel road, dust rising behind us like smoke from a memory I didn't want to face. The closer we got, the tighter my chest felt. That house, my dream house, stood tall and half-finished, sunlight glinting off its white frame like it had something to prove. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. Exactly how I'd imagined it. Every line, every corner, every inch looked like something pulled straight out of my heart. And right there, on the porch I'd once traced with my finger on a blueprint, stood Calvin, and he wasn't alone. Tasha hit the brakes. Girl, that him? she asked, squinting. My voice cracked. Yeah, that's him. Then I saw her. Tall, sleek, hair flowing down her back like she ain't ever had a worry in her life. She laughed at something he said, hand resting easy on his arm. That's when my heart fell straight through the floor. They looked comfortable. Too damn comfortable. Like this wasn't their first visit. Like she already knew where the kitchen would be, where her bedroom window might face the sunrise. Tasha whispered, "You sure you don't want to march up there and—" I cut her off, eyes locked on them. No, not yet. I want to see how bold he gon' be first. Calvin leaned in close to her, pointing at something on the porch beam. She laughed again, that soft, flirty kind of laugh. And I swear it felt like my ribs were breaking from the inside out. Tasha sighed. Lydia, that man playing you like a fool. I nodded slow. Not for long. We sat there a minute, watching them walk through the front door like it already belonged to him. And I remembered how Calvin once told me, this house can have our story in every brick. Now I realized he just forgot to mention which story he was writing. On the ride back, I didn't cry. Not a single tear. I just stared out the window, memorizing every lie that had built those walls. Tasha looked over and said, Girl, you better be careful. Men like him? They don't stop till they break you or you break free. I smiled a little, bitter but sure. Then I guess it's time I learn how to break back. Because that night, when he came home smelling like sawdust and sin, I decided Calvin Monroe was about to find out what it feels like to build something and lose it all. He came home late that night, smelling like sawdust, sweat, and a perfume that sure as hell wasn't mine. I was sitting on the couch, lights low, TV on mute, just waiting. My heart wasn't racing no more. It was steady. Cold. Because sometimes the scariest kind of calm is the one that comes right before the storm. Calvin walked in, kissed the top of my head like he always did, and said, You still up, baby? I smiled, eyes still on the screen. Yeah, couldn't sleep. You busy tonight? He yawned, stretching like he was tired from honest work. Yeah, long day. That project wearing me out. I said quiet. That the same project you working on with Vanessa Reed? The way his body froze told me everything I needed to know. He blinked. Who? I turned to look at him. Vanessa Reed. You know, the woman whose name's sitting right on top of our dream house blueprints. He tried to laugh it off. Baby, that's just a client. You got it all twisted. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. Funny, most clients don't hold their contractor's hand on site. That made him stumble. You been out there? Sure have, I said, voice steady. Saw her. Saw everything. Then he flipped the script like most guilty men do. Lydia, you trippin'. You always overthinkin', always creatin' drama. You gon' mess up everything we workin' for. I laughed, but there wasn't no humor in it. Everything we workin' for? Baby, you been workin' for somebody else. He started pacing, mumbling about how I was ungrateful, how I didn't understand his vision. And that right there, that broke something in me. Because all I ever did was believe in his. I looked at him and said, You took my trust, my money, and my dreams, and built another woman's house with it. And you got the nerve to call me ungrateful? He didn't have nothing left to say. Just silence. The kind that hurts worse than words ever could. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and opened the nightstand drawer. Took off my wedding ring, 20 years of faith and foolishness, and set it down gentle. It hit the wood with a sound I swear echoed through my soul. He started to say something, but I cut him off. Save it. You built a lie, Calvin. Now live in it. I grabbed my purse, my car keys, and walked out that front door. Didn't even look back. Because the next morning, when I saw her post a photo standing inside my dream kitchen, I realized this story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about revenge. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before I even got out of bed. Tasha's name flashed across the screen. I answered half asleep, voice scratchy. Girl, she said, breathing hard like she just ran a mile. You seen Facebook yet? My heart dropped. No, why? She paused, long and heavy. Lydia, you need to. Now, I ain't the type to start my day with mess, but something in her tone told me this wasn't just gossip. I opened the app, And there it was, sitting right there at the top of my feed like a slap across the face. Vanessa Reed, smiling wide, posting a photo of herself standing in my kitchen. The caption read, "Dreams do come true. Can't wait to start this new chapter." And there it was, the marble counters I picked out, the pendant lights I begged Calvin to order, the backsplash I said, felt like home. All of it. My choices, my taste, my dream, but not my name. My fingers trembled scrolling through the comments. Folks congratulating her, saying, "So beautiful. Calvin's such a great man." And that's when it hit me. Not only did he cheat, he paraded it. He took everything I built with him and handed it to another woman like a trophy. I felt something burning in my chest. Anger, shame, disbelief, all of it mixed together until it didn't feel like pain anymore. It felt like fire. I didn't cry this time. No. I stared at that picture till my tears dried up and my resolve settled in. Then I whispered to myself, "All right, baby. You built her a house. Now watch what I do with it." Tasha called again. "You okay?" I smiled, but it wasn't the same smile she knew. "Yeah, girl. I'm done crying. Now I'm planning." Because this wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was about reclaiming every piece of me he tried to give away. He thought he could buy love with my money and bury my pride under his lies. But he forgot. I'm the one who picked the foundation. And I know exactly where to tear it down. Because when I walked into that lawyer's office and opened Calvin's financial records, I realized he didn't just steal my heart. He stole my savings too. And that's when the real fight began. You ever think you done lost everything, and then life shows you there's still a little more left to take? That's how I felt sitting in that lawyer's office, hands folded tight in my lap, heart thumping so hard I could feel it in my throat. Her name was Miss Carter. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. She flipped through the papers I'd brought like she was reading a story she already knew the ending to. Finally, she looked up and said, "Mrs. Monroe, you do realize your husband used your joint savings for this property?" I blinked. "Come again?" She slid a document across the desk. "The account numbers, the withdrawals, they trace straight back to your name. He funneled almost everything into the construction of that house." My ears rang. "You mean to tell me—" "Yes," she said softly. "He built that home, with your money." I swear the room spun. All them years I'd been saving, cutting coupons, skipping vacations, helping him keep the business afloat. And he used my sacrifices to build another woman's dream. I gripped the edge of the chair just to keep myself from shaking. Miss Carter leaned forward, voice calm but fierce. "Mrs. Monroe, you have more power here than you think. Legally, that house is half yours. Every nail, every brick, every damn window belongs to you too." I looked up, blinking through the fog. "So you saying I can take it back?" She smiled a little. "Oh, I'm saying more than that. I'm saying we can make sure he never gets to touch it again." For the first time in weeks, I felt my breath steady. Not because I was calm, but because I had a plan. I left that office with a new kind of fire in me. The kind that don't burn out easy. I wasn't just a betrayed wife no more. I was a woman building her own comeback. That night, I sat on my porch, stars blinking overhead, thinking about all them years I'd carried his dreams like they were mine. And for the first time, I let myself imagine a future that didn't include Calvin Monroe. He built his kingdom on my dime. Now I was going to show him how quick a queen can take her crown back. Because the next time he called begging to talk things through, I smiled and told him sure, right before I started building a plan he'd never see coming. It's funny how calm folks get right before they do something wild. Calvin thought my silence meant forgiveness. Truth was, it meant war. After that talk with Miss Carter, I started playing my cards careful. Didn't block his number. Didn't curse him out no more. When he called, I picked up. When he stopped by the house, I smiled. See? A man like Calvin? He needs to believe he's still in control. And I was done giving him the satisfaction of knowing he'd rattled me. So I cooked his favorite meal that Sunday. Fried catfish, collard greens, sweet cornbread. He walked in acting all sheepish, talking about, "Baby, I messed up. Let's start over." I wanted to laugh in his face, but instead I said, We'll see. He relaxed right then. Thought he'd won me back, and that's exactly what I wanted him to think. While he was eating, I slipped my phone under the table and recorded every word he said. Every mention of our house, our money, our future. Every lie he told was another brick in the case Miss Carter was building for me. Over the next few weeks, I kept up the act. Went to church, smiled at folks, worked my shifts. Nobody knew I was quietly collecting every document, every receipt, every photo. I wasn't just gathering proof. I was gathering peace. Late nights, I'd sit by my window, journal in hand, writing out everything I never said to him. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every little thing I'd buried under "I'm fine." And somewhere between them pages, I found a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. She was softer, but stronger. She didn't beg. She built one evening. Tasha came by, watching me highlighting paperwork at the table. She said, "Girl, you really gonna take it all back, huh?" I looked up, smiled slow. "Nah, Tash, I ain't just taking it back." I tapped the folder and said, "I'm taking it over." By the time Calvin realized my silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. It was already too late. Because when you've been lied to enough times, your peace don't come from revenge. It comes from preparation. And the day I showed up to that construction site wearing my Sunday best, Vanessa's smile froze. 'Cause she finally realized whose house she'd been standing in all along. That morning I woke up before sunrise. Didn't even touch my coffee. I just stood in front of my closet staring at myself in the mirror. I wasn't looking for beauty that day. I was looking for armor. I picked my burgundy dress, the same one I wore to Calvin's first business award dinner, back when he said I was his good luck charm. Funny thing is, I still was, just not for him anymore. By the time I pulled up to the construction site, the air smelled like fresh wood and new beginnings. Workers were moving around, hammering and shouting directions. And right in the middle of it all, there she was, Vanessa. She looked younger up close. Long hair, pretty smile, confidence hanging on her like expensive perfume. But when she turned and saw me stepping out that car, her face dropped like a bad habit. "Lydia?" she said, clutching that clipboard like it might protect her. I smiled. "You can drop the act, sweetheart. Ain't no need for introductions. I know exactly who you are." Before she could respond, Calvin came out from inside, all nervous energy and fake charm. "Baby, what are you doing here?" "Which one of us you askin', Calvin?" I said, folding my arms. "You calling her baby too?" You could have heard a nail drop. Vanessa looked from him to me, realization hitting her like a storm. "You said y'all were separated," she whispered. I laughed, low and bitter. "Separated? The only thing separated round here is truth from that man's mouth." I walked past them both, straight into the house I helped design. Every wall, every tile, every fixture, I remembered choosing it. My fingerprints were all over that place. And for the first time, I didn't feel pain. I felt ownership. I turned to face them, my heels clicking against that new hardwood. "You see this house?" I said. "The blueprints got your name, Vanessa. But the money? The heart? The sweat? That came from me." Vanessa looked stunned. Calvin tried to speak, but I cut him off. "I don't need your explanations, Calvin. I got my lawyer for that." Then I looked straight at her. "And you, sweetheart, I hope you like redecorating. 'Cause this place? It's about to change hands real soon." I walked out with my head high, feeling lighter than I had in years. The house wasn't mine yet on paper, but in spirit. Oh, it always had been. But when I got back to my car, my phone buzzed, and what I saw on that screen made my blood run cold. He wasn't done playing games. He was just getting started. By the time I made it back to my car, my hands were still trembling. Not from fear, from rage that was finally finding its voice. I sat there a minute, breathing deep, trying to steady myself. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my bank. "Unusual withdrawal detected." I clicked it, and my stomach dropped. Thousands gone. From the same joint account Calvin swore he hadn't touched since we split. That man was slick. While I was out there standing in my truth, he was in the background trying to bleed me dry. My first instinct was to drive straight to his office and show out. But I caught myself. Nah, that's what he'd expect. A woman mad and reckless. He wanted me loud so he could play the victim again. So I did the one thing he'd never seen me do. I went quiet. I called Miss Carter. Told her everything. She didn't even sound surprised. Men like him always get sloppy when they think they still got control, she said. Then her tone changed. We'll freeze that account today. And Mrs. Monroe, get ready. We're about to turn the tables. That night, I went through every old folder, every tax return, every invoice. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Little signs of deceit I'd missed for years. A consulting fee that was really a trip to Miami. A loan repayment that matched the price of the necklace I once saw Vanessa wearing online. Each lie was like a splinter working its way out. Painful, but cleansing. Tasha came over with Chinese takeout, sat beside me while I spread the papers across the floor. Girl, this is a whole crime scene, she muttered. I laughed, bitter but proud. Then I guess I'm the detective now. She looked at me, serious. You really gonna fight him with all this? Oh, I ain't just fighting him, I said, eyes on them receipts. I'm building something that'll hurt him worse than any lawyer ever could. See? Calvin thought he could take my money and my dignity in one clean sweep. But what he didn't realize, I still had something he couldn't touch, my story. And when I was done, the world was going to know exactly who he really was. Because the next morning, when the news broke about a local contractor under investigation, I knew it was time to stop hiding and start rebuilding what was mine. It started with a whisper. A Facebook post from one of Calvin's old clients saying, "Y'all be careful with Monroe Construction. Something ain't right." By noon, it wasn't a whisper anymore. It was a wildfire. I was at work when my coworker Cheryl called out from the break room, "Lydia, ain't that your husband on the news?" My stomach twisted. I walked over slow, and there it was, his face on the screen. Right next to the headline, "Local contractor under investigation for misuse of funds." I just stood there, frozen between shock and satisfaction. The anchor was talking about financial discrepancies, client complaints, and improper use of business accounts. They didn't have to say it. I already knew. That was my money, my pain. My story, finally seeing daylight. Cheryl looked at me wide-eyed. "Girl, you okay?" I nodded, calm as a Sunday sermon. "Oh, I'm just fine." Looks like karma clocked in early today. When I got home, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Folks texting, calling, asking if I was all right. Even Vanessa tried reaching out. Her message was short. "I didn't know, Lydia. I'm sorry." I didn't reply. Some apologies ain't meant for words. They're meant for silence. Later that night, Miss Carter called. "You see the news?" "Sure did," I said. "Well, brace yourself," she replied. "He's panicking. His lawyer's calling for a settlement meeting. He wants to make this disappear," I laughed. "Disappear? He should have thought about that before he stole from me." "Good," she said, her voice steady. "Keep that same energy when you walk into that room." "He's used to you bending?" "Not this time." I hung up and sat on the porch, staring out at the night sky. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace. Not 'cause he was hurtin', but 'cause I wasn't anymore. See, sometimes God don't let you get revenge. He just lets the truth do the talkin', but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. He was cornered now, and a man like Calvin, he'd fight dirty before he'd ever admit defeat. And sure enough, the next day he showed up on my porch, begging to talk, holding a manila envelope that would test every bit of strength I had left. When I opened that front door, I swear the air changed. There he was, Calvin Monroe, standing on my porch like a man who'd finally run out of places to hide. He looked smaller somehow. Not in size, in spirit. Suit wrinkled, eyes tired, jaw twitching like he hadn't slept in days. "Lydia," he started, voice soft. "Please, can we talk?" I crossed my arms. "We talkin' now." He glanced around like he was scared the neighbors might hear. Then he held up that manila envelope like it was something holy. "This got everything," he said. "The accounts, the contracts, the transfers, I messed up, all right? But if you help me fix this, maybe we can— We? I cut in, my voice sharp. Calvin, the only we you had was you and that woman in my house. He flinched. Lydia, it wasn't like that. Oh, it was exactly like that. I stepped closer, eyes never leaving his. You built her a dream with my hands. You used my savings, my trust, and my name, and you think handing me an envelope gonna make it right? He swallowed hard, eyes glassy. I lost control, baby. I thought I could keep both. Don't you baby me, I snapped. You didn't lose control. You lost character. He looked down then, whispering, They're gonna take everything. I said, Maybe they should. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. Finally, he opened that envelope and slid it toward me. These are the deeds and blueprints, he said. The house, it's in both our names. You can take it. I need help. I stared at it for a long moment. That envelope felt heavier than bricks. It wasn't just paper. It was proof of every wound, every lie. Every night I cried myself to sleep thinking I wasn't enough. I took it slow, my fingers brushing the edge. You're right, I said quietly. You do need help. Just not from me. His eyes widened. Lydia, but I was already closing the door. I got my lawyer, Calvin. You got your consequences. We both right where we belong. I locked that door and leaned against it, tears slipping down, but my heart steady as stone. That was the first time I didn't feel like his wife. I felt like a woman who finally chose herself. But when I opened that envelope later that night, one document caught my eye. And it wasn't about money. It was something personal, something he'd been hiding from both of us. I don't know what made me open that envelope again. Maybe curiosity. Maybe closure. Maybe that quiet voice inside saying, Girl, you better make sure this man ain't leaving no more surprises behind. I sat at my kitchen table, the hum of the fridge the only sound in the room. Pulled the papers out one by one, contracts, receipts, blueprints. All of it legal, cold, black and white. Then I saw it, folded inside the last blueprint sheet, like it was hiding on purpose. A handwritten letter, addressed to Vanessa. My chest tightened. I didn't even want to read it, but my fingers moved on their own. It started soft. Vanessa, my heart, I can't wait to start our life in this house. Then it got worse. He wrote about our furniture, my kitchen designs, the exact paint colors I'd picked, all things he'd promised me. Except now, he was telling her it was all for her. I had to stop and close my eyes, my breath shaken. The kind of hurt that don't make you cry right away. It just sinks deep, like an anchor. I read on, and that's when I saw something that made my whole body go cold. I'll put her name on the deed later. She'll never notice until it's done. That line right there? It wasn't heartbreak no more. It was proof. All them times I thought I was overreacting. All them nights I told myself to trust him. This letter showed me exactly who he'd been all along. I sat there staring at his handwriting, them same loops and curls I'd seen in love notes years ago. Only this time, every word cut like glass. I folded that paper real neat and tucked it back in the envelope. Not out of forgiveness, out of strategy. When Miss Carter saw it the next morning, she looked up from her desk with a little smirk. Lydia, this ain't just a letter, she said. This is intent. This proves premeditated fraud. I blinked. You mean— I mean, she said, leaning back in her chair. This just became the key to taking it all back. Legally, publicly, permanently. I didn't say nothing for a second. Just let that sink in. All that pain, all them tears, were about to become my power. But I wasn't ready for what came next. 'Cause when the court date came round, Calvin walked in with someone I never expected, and the truth hit harder than any lie he ever told. The courthouse smelled like polished wood, stale coffee, and tension thick enough to choke on. I walked in slow, heels clicking on the tile, heart steady but eyes sharp. Calvin was already there, sitting in the front row like he owned the place. Next to him, I froze. Vanessa, she looked nervous, flustered, not the confident woman I saw in my kitchen. And in that moment, I realized something. She didn't know the half of what she'd walked into. The judge called the case. Calvin's lawyer started rambling about misunderstandings and good intentions. But I had Miss Carter in my corner. And that letter, every invoice, every blueprint, every dollar was my ammunition. When my turn came, I stood, shoulders back, voice calm but strong. "Your Honor," I said, "I'm not just here because he betrayed my trust. I'm here because he stole my life, my money, my home, my dreams, and tried to hand them to someone else as if I never existed." You could hear a pin drop. Even Vanessa shifted in her seat, finally looking like she understood. We presented the evidence, the blueprints with her name, the financial records, the handwritten letter. Every lie Calvin had tried to hide in the shadows now shone in the courtroom lights. The judge listened, nodding slowly. And then came the best part. Calvin's face, pale as a ghost, realizing this time there was no way out. By the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The house, the accounts, everything built with my money. Mine. Calvin could try to fight it, sure. But for the first time in years, I didn't fear him. As we left the courtroom, Vanessa whispered, barely audible, "I didn't know." I looked at her, calm, eyes steady. "You didn't know," I said softly, "because you weren't me. And only I built it, with sweat, tears, and strength he'll never have." Outside, Tasha hugged me tight, whispering, "Girl, you did it." And for the first time in a long time, I felt it. Freedom, pure and unshakable. But just when I thought it was over, Calvin tried one last move, a betrayal so low, it almost made me question if victory was even worth it. Just when I thought I could breathe, he showed up again. Calvin Monroe, suit pressed, shoes shined, fake charm dialed up to 11. But this time, he brought a stack of papers that made my stomach drop. "Lydia," he said, voice sweet like syrup but coated in poison, "I've got something to show you." "Maybe it'll change your mind." I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms. Change my mind about what? About the truth? About the lies? About you? He handed me the papers like a peace offering. At first glance, it looked innocent. Some contract amendments, minor signatures. But then I saw it, a hidden clause. One that could let him claim partial ownership of the house if I didn't sign certain arbitration papers. He'd tried to sneak in another betrayal. My blood boiled, but I didn't let it show. I stared at him, calm as a Sunday morning, voice quiet but deadly. "Calvin," I said, "you really think after everything you've done, I'm going to sign anything for you?" He swallowed. "Baby, please." "Just read it," I laughed. Not the soft laugh I used to give him. Not the one that forgave everything. This was cold, sharp, full of the fire he'd tried to snuff out. "No, I've read enough. I don't need your papers. I've got the law, the proof, and the truth. You've burned your bridges, Calvin. All that's left for you is to walk them alone." His face twisted with anger and desperation. I walked past him, collected my keys, my purse, and my envelope of victory. He called after me, but I didn't turn. I didn't have to. This was the last time he would ever think he could control me. Because once he left, I realized something. The house wasn't just mine anymore. It was a symbol, and it was time to make sure everyone knew exactly who built it and who it belonged to. The next morning, I drove down that long gravel road, the sun glinting off the half-built walls like it was shining just for me. Every step toward the house felt heavier, but stronger, like I was walking back into my own skin after years of wearing someone else's. When I unlocked the front door, the smell hit me. Fresh paint, sawdust, and possibilities. Every room held a memory. The kitchen where I planned our meals, the living room where I'd imagined birthday parties, the porch where I'd dreamt about my golden years. This was my life. Stolen, then returned, and now fully mine. I walked through each room slowly, touching walls, tracing the countertops, running my hands over the floors I'd chosen. It wasn't just about ownership. It was reclamation. Every corner whispered, "You made this. No one can take it from you." The contractors showed up soon after. I told them to proceed with the changes. Small things I wanted differently. Personal touches Calvin never would have considered. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was my vision, my space, my home. Tasha came by later that afternoon, grinning ear to ear. "You sure you ain't overreactin'?" she teased. I laughed, light for the first time in years. "Tash, this ain't overreaction. This is freedom. This is me taking what's mine and making it right." And as I watched the sun set behind my reclaimed porch, I realized something powerful. The house wasn't just walls and floors. It was proof that I could rise from betrayal, reclaim my life, and still find beauty in what I'd built. But as the night fell and the house glowed under the porch lights, I got a call that made my heart skip. Calvin wasn't done scheming. He had one last trick, and it involved the neighbors and the press. Just when I thought I could finally breathe easy, my phone rang, nonstop buzzing like a swarm of bees. It was my neighbors, the local news, even some old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. And Calvin? Oh, he was at it again. He'd called a community viewing at the house, telling folks it was a celebration of the new build. But everyone there was whispering about me, about the wife he betrayed. He thought this would embarrass me, make me shrink back into shame. So I did what I do best. I walked up to that crowd, heels clicking on the gravel, head high, smile steady, like I owned the damn place. Because I did. "Good evening, everyone," I said loud enough for the whispers to hush. Faces turned, some smirking, some confused. "I hear there's been a little confusion about this house," I continued, voice calm but strong. "All the designs, the plans, the money, it came from me. Every brick, every nail, every detail you see, that's my vision." A murmur ran through the crowd. Calvin's jaw dropped. Vanessa's face turned pale. I let them sit in that silence for a moment, just long enough for the truth to sink in. "Now," I said, letting my gaze sweep the onlookers, "I'm not here for shame or revenge. I'm here to remind everyone, if you build your dreams on someone else's trust, don't be surprised when that trust comes back tenfold." Phones were raised. Neighbors whispered and reporters started jotting notes. Calvin tried to interrupt, stammering, but I didn't flinch. I'd taken back my power, and now the world knew it. By the time I left, walking past that stunned crowd, Tasha's arm around my shoulders, I felt unstoppable. The house wasn't just reclaimed, it had become a monument to my strength, my patience, and my resilience. But just when I thought the nightmare was over, I received a message that made my blood run cold. Calvin had a plan that could ruin everything I'd just fought to reclaim. I was just sitting in my office going over the final remodel plans when my phone buzzed. No caller ID. I answered slow, a chill running down my spine. "Lydia!" Calvin's voice hissed through the speaker. "Don't you dare answer," I whispered to myself, but curiosity got the best of me. "What do you want?" I asked, calm but sharp. "Just thinking you got it all," he said, laughing low, bitter. "But don't get too comfortable. I can still—" "Stop right there," I cut him off, voice cold. "You had your chance, Calvin. I'm done listening to threats. I own the house, I own the accounts, and most importantly, I own my life. You've lost everything you tried to take from me." He laughed, a sound more desperate than menacing. "You think this ends with a house? People remember betrayal, Lydia. You're not untouchable." I smiled, steady, unshaken. "Maybe not, but I'm untouchable in what matters. My truth, my power, my story. And this," I tapped the desk. "This is mine, not yours." Silence on the other end. I could almost hear him breathing through the receiver. Then, "You think you've won?" he whispered, bitter. "I already did," I said, hanging up. For the first time, I realized the fear he'd held over me for years. The lies, the charm, the manipulation. None of it worked anymore. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was free. I looked around my home, my dream, my labor, my reclaimed life, and let out a long breath. Calvin could scream, threaten, or try whatever tricks he had left, but I had already won where it mattered: my dignity, my safety, and my story. Because the next morning, as sunlight hit the windows of my reclaimed house, I made one final choice. a choice that would close the chapter on Calvin Monroe forever and let me step into the life I was always meant to live. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, painting every corner of the house I'd fought so hard to reclaim. It was quiet. No whispers, no threats, no lies. Just the hum of life settling into its rightful place. I walked from room to room, fingers brushing the countertops, walls, and floors that had once felt tainted by betrayal. Now every inch was mine. Every corner held my vision, my sweat, my story. I stepped onto the porch, coffee in hand, and breathed deep. The air smelled like freedom, like possibility, like a future I'd earned with every tear, every sleepless night, every moment I could have given up, but didn't. My phone buzzed one last time. Calvin. I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. He had no power here anymore. Not over me. Not over this house. Not over my life. I looked out at the garden we'd planned, the sunlight glinting off the freshly painted walls, and felt it fully for the first time. Peace. I smiled, not bitterly, not with revenge in my eyes, but with the calm satisfaction of a woman who'd taken back everything that was hers and more. The house wasn't just a home anymore. It was a symbol of strength, resilience, and the fact that no betrayal could ever define me. I turned, walked back inside, and closed the door behind me. The past was behind me. The future was mine to build, and for the first time in years, I felt truly unstoppable. Sometimes life takes everything you trust and twists it into heartbreak. But every brick of betrayal can be rebuilt into a monument of your power, just like I did. If you've ever felt betrayed, overlooked, or underestimated, you're not alone, and you don't have to face it quietly. On Echo of Her, we share raw, real stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimate empowerment from women who refuse to stay silent. Every story is emotional, dramatic, and deeply relatable. Stories that will make you cry, rage, and inspire you to take your own power back. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community. Step into these lives, feel every emotion, and discover the strength within yourself, one story at a time.